armada. Rows upon rows of monstrous warships hovered at the edge of the solar system, positioned like a coiled snake, waiting to strike. They were bigger than anything humanity had ever built, their sleek, midnight black hulls lined with glowing alien runes, their weapon systems humming with an energy signature that shouldn't exist. The general folded his arms, looking 10 years older in just a few hours. They're demanding a full planetary surrender. Jack raised an eyebrow. Well, that's ambitious. The tech officer swallowed. They gave us 3 hours to comply before they initiate what they called a demonstration of power. Jack exhaled, staring at the screen. All right, what's the play? The general's jaw tightened. We're working on it. Jack smirked. Translation: we got nothing. No one disagreed. Vrick stood at the helm of his command vessel, staring down at the distant blue and green orb of Earth. His clawed hands flexed at his sides as the timer ticked down. 3 hours. Enough time for the humans to process their insignificance. Enough time for them to break. He turned to his fleet captain. Prepare the demonstration. The captain gave a stiff nod before relaying the order. Moments later, a massive dreadnought at the fleet center powered up its primary weapon. A planet-killer device that had turned lesser worlds into smoldering husks. This was not meant to destroy Earth, only to remind them that it could be done. A single shot, aimed at one of their lesser moon installations, would be enough to sever any illusions of defiance. And yet, something nagged at the back of Vrick's mind. The humans weren't responding. They weren't panicking. They weren't negotiating. They weren't doing anything. A deep, unsettling dread began to creep into his gut. Then, the humans responded. Jack stood next to the transmission console, arms crossed, watching as the general debated with the Joint Chiefs, as scientists scrambled to come up with some way to counter a fleet that could glass their entire civilization in an afternoon. He tapped his fingers against the metal console, thinking. Then he did something no one expected. He reached over, flipped the outgoing transmission switch, and typed one message. You'll ever hear of the Alamo? The general turned in horror. What the hell are you doing? Jack grinned, making sure they understand what happens when you corner a Texan. The Galactic Council received the message instantly. Vrick stared at the transmission screen, waiting for more, waiting for anything. That was it. That was the entire human response. Not a surrender, not a plea for mercy, not even a warning, just a reference to some ancient human battle. Vrick barked a command. Give me everything we have on this Alamo. Within seconds, intelligence analysts rushed forward, pulling historical data from their archives on human conflicts. Text and imagery scrolled across the screen. Vrick read. Then he read again. Then he froze. The Alamo was not a story of victory. It was a story of hopeless resistance. It was a last stand, a fight against impossible odds. The humans weren't surrendering. They were digging in. The implications hit like a plasma round to the chest. Humanity understood they couldn't win. They saw the overwhelming force against them. They recognized their weakness, and they still chose to fight. His breath came shorter, sharper. They were prepared to die rather than yield. A cold sweat formed beneath his exoskeletal plates. A species that did not fear death was not a species that could be conquered. One of the analysts, voice barely above a whisper, echoed the thought that now strangled the entire room. They will fight us to their last breath. The dreadnought's cannon hummed louder, preparing to fire. Vrick felt it in his bones. If they fired that shot, it wouldn't end here. Humanity wouldn't just resist. They would find a way to win. His throat clicked dryly as he turned to his captain. Power down the weapon. The command deck stiffened. The captain hesitated. Sir? Vrick voice was hoarse. Power it down? The Galactic Armada, the most powerful fleet in existence, hesitated before a single enemy. The humans were not technologically superior. They were not stronger. They were not faster. But they had something else. Something terrifying. Vrick turned, staring at the planet below, realization settling in like a sickness. They had made a mistake. A very, very big mistake. The command deck of the Galactic Council's flagship remained eerily silent, the weight of unspoken dread pressing down on every officer, every analyst, every hardened soldier who had believed, until this moment. that they were invincible. Vrick stood at the center, staring out at the distant blue planet that refused to bow, refused to cower. The humans should have been broken by now. They should have been begging for their survival. Instead, they had answered their impending doom with a single cryptic reference to one of their own defeats. He had seen countless civilizations fall. He had watched planets burn, had signed off on the annihilation of empires that had dared to resist the will of the Galactic Council. Yet never once had he encountered a species that responded to an overwhelming force with nothing but sheer defiance. That was when the truth settled in his bones, a cold and terrible realization. If they fired on Earth, they would never know peace again. Humanity would not go quietly. Humanity would not forget. The moment they engaged, they would be locked into a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Not one of strategy, not one of technological superiority, but of sheer, relentless, unyielding attrition. Vrick clenched his mandibles, his mind racing. Even if the humans lacked the power to strike back now, it wouldn't stay that way. Given time, they would adapt. They would fight in ways no rational species ever would. They would learn from their failures. And if history had taught him anything, it was that the most dangerous enemy was the one who refused to stay beaten. He turned sharply to his captain. "Stand down." The command deck bristled. Every officer, every strategist stiffened, eyes darting in disbelief. The high strategist took a hesitant step forward. "Sir, you cannot." Vrick's gaze snapped to him, voice razor-edged. "Stand down." The fleet's war engines, primed to fire, hummed into silence. Across the armada, plasma batteries powered down, shields were lowered, and the galaxy's deadliest warships retreated from the message was clear. The Galactic Council had come to conquer, but instead, they had backed away. And the moment that decision was made, something far more dangerous than war had begun, a legend. The humans had stood against an empire and made them flinch. That single moment would spread, whispered in darkened corridors of galactic capitals, muttered in fear by war councils who had once scoffed at the backwater planet in the Sol system. The council's unquestionable authority had cracked, and Jack Callahan knew it. He sat at a dimly lit bar, watching the encrypted military feed from the command center flicker across the screen. The official announcement was playing, some carefully worded diplomatic nonsense about how the Galactic Council had reconsidered its stance on humanity and was willing to enter peaceful negotiations. But Jack knew the truth. They had blinked. He took a slow sip of beer, letting the moment sink in. The bartender raised an eyebrow. "So that's it? Aliens showed up, threw a fit, and left." Jack smirked. "Not quite. They're not scared of us yet. But they're getting there." The bartender snorted. "So what happens next?" Jack set his drink down, leaning back in his chair. "Well," he mused, "we just proved we're too much trouble to kill. Which means now they're going to start trying to make deals." And he was right. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council's first diplomatic envoy arrived, escorted by warships that pretended they weren't afraid. They came with carefully rehearsed words, with hollow pleasantries, with offers of peaceful cooperation. But beneath the veneer of diplomacy, the truth was written across every anxious expression, every nervous glance. They had come not as conquerors, but as men afraid of what they had woken up. The negotiations were swift. Humanity was officially recognized as a sovereign power within the galactic community, granted its own protected space, its own diplomatic standing. But the real victory? The real victory was in the unspoken rules that had formed overnight. No one would invade Earth. No one would challenge its authority, because no one wanted to see what happened when humans had their backs against the wall. Jack sat at the negotiation table, watching Vrick carefully. The alien looked tired, as if he had aged a decade in the past month. Jack couldn't help but enjoy the irony. "You've been awfully quiet," Jack said, taking a sip of his coffee. Vrick's mandibles twitched, his voice slow, measured. "I do not make a habit of speaking to creatures who should not exist." Jack grinned. "That's the thing, though. We do." Vrick studied him for a long moment before exhaling through his gills. "You were not supposed to be a threat." Jack shrugged. "Yeah, well, we weren't supposed to beat the British in 1776, either." But here we are. A flash of irritation passed over the alien's face. Your species thrives on chaos. Jack leaned in, voice low. Buddy, we are chaos. Vrichtol's fingers flexed against the table, his unease barely masked beneath a thin veil of diplomacy. He had feared war. Now, he feared something worse. He feared what humans might become. The meeting concluded with empty pleasantries, handshakes, and carefully posed photographs. But as the aliens boarded their sleek, advanced ships and prepared to leave, Vrichtol took one last glance at the humans before him, a shadow of uncertainty lingering in his eyes. He knew this wasn't the end. He knew that, someday, the Galactic Council would have to face the truth. They had made a terrible mistake, and humanity was just getting started. Jack watched as the alien ships lifted off, disappearing into the stars, leaving behind a planet that had not surrendered, had not cowered, had not broken. He finished his coffee, exhaling slowly. Then he smiled. Told you we were special.
The medbay lights flickered again. Mason's breath hitched involuntarily, not from the stuttering fluorescence overhead, but from the shot of pain in his ribs as he reached for the towel he'd dropped by his bunk. 2 weeks post-accident, and he still couldn't sneeze without feeling like his chest was being pried open. The shoulder? Better. Mostly. But the ribs, they ached with a sort of stubborn pride, like they wanted him to know exactly how much of a mistake it had been to walk into that unstable gravity simulation pod. Severe lateral compression, Dr. Heskell had said, glancing at the scans like she was trying not to scold him. 2 cracked ribs, 1 displaced anteriorly. Dislocated left shoulder. You're lucky it wasn't worse. Lucky. Mason never quite understood how luck factored into orbital gravity fields gone haywire. Now he stood shirtless in the cool air of the medbay locker room, gauze tape on his side, compression brace half-latched around his ribs. The routine was tedious: unwrap, stretch, rewrap, and curse quietly when a muscle protested the range of motion exercises. He didn't mind the pain, he minded the forced downtime. His classmates were outside, elbow-deep in alien ecosystem mapping drills, while he cataloged fungal growths in the damp corners of Dome C. Not exactly what he'd pictured when he enrolled in the most dangerous interspecies xenobiology program in the galaxy. Nexus Academy wasn't just a school. It was a proving ground buried deep in the jungles of Roth Kesh, where students studied living ecosystems too volatile to be simulated and too valuable to ignore. Gravity anomalies, biotoxin storms, and flora with independent mobility were all just Thursday's syllabus. But Mason had come for one reason: the Krillins. Engineered from apex predator stock and enhanced for intelligence, the Krillin stalkers were the closest thing the galaxy had to nightmares with pulse rates. 8 feet tall at the shoulder, capable of rendering steel like paper, they had been bred for war and now were being studied for peace. Ethical reprogramming, behavioral protocols, even attempts at communication. It was why Mason had chosen xenobiology. He wanted to understand them, not just catalog their terror. Today, though, he was grounded. Again. A short assignment: scan atmospheric moisture levels near the secondary hatchery, retrieve a med scanner he'd left behind yesterday, and return before the late afternoon drills began. He pulled on his uniform top with a wince and pressed his clearance badge to the exit console. The door hissed open, and the station's clean, metallic corridors greeted him with their usual sterile calm. 15 minutes later, calm was the last thing left. The sirens began low, an eerie hum that grew sharp and ragged, echoing through the dome with digital urgency. Mason froze mid-step as the red strobe lights flashed to life along the walls. Security breach detected. All students report to evacuation zones. Level 4, protocol in effect. Level 4? That wasn't a drill. Level 4 meant predator breach. Mason turned back toward the main corridor, but the bulkhead door slammed shut ahead of him. Then, another, sealed behind him. A full lockdown. 1,000 possible causes raced through his mind, but only one froze his chest. The Krillin enclosures were adjacent to the secondary hatchery. He looked down at the small corridor screen just as a grainy image blinked to life. Blurred movement, long limbs, black eyes, a tail swaying low and slow like a metronome of death. The stalker was loose. The voice of Overseer Haltran crackled over the intercom. Containment failure in Sector 9. All personnel accounted for except one. Mason Wilder is unconfirmed. Great. Not even famous yet, and already the subject of an academy-wide manhunt. He considered yelling into the comm panel, but no one could hear him with lockdown engaged. The hatchery was the only direction open to him. With no other path, Mason limped toward it, holding his side as another ripple of pain reminded him how much his body still hated stairs. The hatchery dome, a synthetic ecosystem designed for juvenile fauna acclimation, was eerily quiet. No ventilation fan. Mason moved fast, careful not to jar his shoulder, and ducked into the med closet near the entrance. His scanner was right where he'd left it, half buried under a stack of hydro blankets. He just shoved it into his satchel when a soft, pitiful whine stopped him cold. Not a mechanical sound. Alive? He turned toward the habitat cages at the far end of the dome. Two small shapes huddled under a heat lamp that was barely flickering. Not just any fauna. Krillin cubs. They were half-sized, barely the height of his knee, but already carried the unmistakable features: angled limbs, scaled hides, and those black, intelligent eyes. Both were hurt. One's hind leg was twisted unnaturally, blood trickling from a tear at the joint. The other breathed shallowly, its side rising unevenly. Mason glanced around the dome. No sign of their containment keeper. No guards, no equipment bots. His stomach turned. If the mother had escaped and these were her cubs, it meant someone had moved them here deliberately. Then the lockdown made sense. Someone had known. Mason stepped toward the cubs, slow, non-threatening. They bared tiny fangs, hissed weakly. "Hey, hey," he whispered. "Easy. I'm not gonna hurt you." He kneeled, biting back a grunt as his ribs stabbed pain into his lungs, and pulled his satchel forward. The portable med scanner buzzed to life. The one with the leg injury had a clean fracture. The other was running a dangerously high fever. He found the emergency field bandages in a nearby case and used two to fashion a brace. His hands shook from the strain of bending, but he worked through it. He brought to coax them into drinking. One refused. The other, after sniffing at his bloodied glove, licked at the nutrient gel in pulses. He overturned two empty crates and propped up thermal blankets, making a shallow tent near the ventilation duct. It wasn't much, but it shielded them from the electrical smoke creeping in from the hallway fire suppression faults. Then Mason sat, holding his side, back against the console, and waited. He didn't have to wait long. It was late cycle. The dome's exterior shields were dimming, mimicking twilight. The sudden silence, the kind that only comes before something very bad settled, like a shroud. The door on the far side of the dome shuddered, metal groaned. Then, a shriek of tearing alloy. Shadows across its body. Scars lined its torso. One eye was cloudy. Its breathing was measured, but the dome's air trembled with each inhale. Mason didn't move.
The massive Imperial flagship Eternal Dawn emerged from hyperspace like a steel mountain against the stars. Its polished hull stretched. Dr. Amanda Mitchell stared at her quantum oscillation readings, her coffee growing cold beside the holographic display. Something wasn't right. The patterns she'd been monitoring from the Lunar Research Station showed distinct irregularities, patterns too precise to be natural background radiation. "Hey Marcus, take a look at this," she called to her research partner, Dr. Marcus Reynolds, who was calibrating the deep space sensors nearby. "These signatures appear artificial." Marcus adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and leaned over her workstation. "That's impossible. We're monitoring empty space between Mars and Jupiter. There shouldn't be anything out there generating quantum fluctuations." Exactly. Amanda pulled up 3 months of archived data. But look at the regularity. Every 48 hours, like clockwork. Whatever this is, it's been watching us. The realization hit them both simultaneously. They weren't detecting natural phenomena. They were picking up cloaked observation posts. Their new quantum detection array, designed to study dark matter, had accidentally revealed something far more significant. Within hours, Mission Control in Houston was buzzing with activity. Amanda found herself video conferencing with military officials, NASA administrators, and government representatives from every major spacefaring nation. "You're telling me we've had aliens watching us this whole time?" General Richard Hayes leaned forward in his chair, his image slightly distorted by the quantum encrypted feed. "How many observation posts are we talking about?" "At least 15 that we've confirmed," Amanda replied, bringing up a map of the solar system. Red dots appeared at various strategic points. They're positioned to monitor all our major communications channels: radio, microwave, even our quantum experiments. Dr. James Cooper from the European Space Agency spoke up. "The implications are staggering. They've been intercepting and analyzing everything we broadcast." Amanda nodded, but a slight smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Yes, but they made one crucial mistake. They never considered we'd developed technology that could detect their quantum signatures. They thought they were completely invisible." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had accidentally leapfrogged ahead of their watchers in at least one crucial technology. "What are our options?" asked Dr. Sarah Martinez, the head of NASA's Quantum Research Division. Amanda took a deep breath. "I have a proposal. It's radical, but it might be our best chance." She pulled up a new simulation. "We've been developing quantum communication technology that operates on principles completely different from anything we're detecting from their observation posts. If we switch all our communications to this new system, we go dark." Marcus finished her thought. "From their perspective, Earth would simply fall silent." General Hayes frowned. "Wouldn't that just convince them to take a closer look? Maybe even intervene?" "Not necessarily," Amanda countered. "We've been analyzing their observation patterns. They're extremely methodical, almost predictable. Their entire approach suggests a civilization that relies heavily on established protocols. If we do this right, we can use their own methodical nature against them." The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. Amanda's team worked frantically to distribute quantum communication nodes to key facilities worldwide. They had to coordinate the largest technological shift in human history, and they had to do it without alerting their watchers. At exactly 300 UTC, Amanda stood before her team in the Lunar Research Station's main control room. Screens showed similar scenes playing out in control centers around the world. In 4 minutes, humanity would attempt something unprecedented. "Final checklist complete," Marcus announced. "All facilities report ready for transition." Amanda looked at the countdown timer. "Remember, everyone, the moment we switch to quantum comm, we'll be operating in true silence. No traditional signals of any kind can be allowed to leak. We have to make this look like a complete technological shutdown." The timer reached 0. Amanda took one last look at the conventional communication displays. knowing this would be a moment historians would study for centuries, assuming their plan worked. Execute Operation Darkstar. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity's countless transmissions, from radio and television to satellite signals and space communications, winked out in perfect synchronization. To any watching eyes, it would appear as if human civilization had simply switched off. In the sudden quiet of their new quantum communications network, Amanda watched as the alien observation posts registered the change. Their quantum signatures shifted, suggesting increased activity. First contact was coming, she knew, but now it would happen on humanity's terms. And now, she whispered to herself, we wait to see who blinks first. Colonel James Harrison stood at the viewport of Mars Forward Base, watching the stars with newfound wariness. 3 weeks had passed since Earth initiated the blackout, and the alien observation posts had shifted position 4 times, each movement betraying growing concern. Sir, we've detected new quantum signatures approaching from the Kuiper Belt, Lieutenant Sarah Foster reported from her monitoring station. Configuration matches none of the previous observation posts. Harrison moved to the holographic display, studying the incoming data. How many? 7 vessels, sir, larger than anything we've seen so far. Based on their quantum wake, they're pushing some serious gravitational drives. The colonel allowed himself a grim smile. Earth's silence had finally drawn the attention of someone higher up their watcher's chain of command. Through quantum channels, he contacted Houston Command. General Hayes, this is Harrison. Looks like we've got company coming to check on their quiet neighbors. Acknowledged, Colonel. Continue monitoring, but maintain absolute silence on all traditional channels. How's the phase shield testing proceeding? Harrison glanced at the experimental device humming quietly in the corner of the command center. Dr. Reynolds' team says we're ready for field testing. If these new visitors try scanning the base, they're in for a surprise. The alien vessels took up position around Mars, their quantum signatures pulsing with active scanning patterns. Harrison watched as his base, protected by the experimental phase shield, appeared to fade from normal spacetime, just enough to become undetectable. Multiple scanning attempts detected, Foster announced. They're using everything from basic electromagnetic to advanced quantum imaging. She paused, checking her readings twice. Sir, they're getting nothing. The phase shield is working perfectly. Throughout the base, personnel moved with practiced silence, their movements carefully choreographed to maintain the illusion of abandonment. They drilled for this, but doing it under actual alien surveillance added an edge no training could replicate. Harrison's quantum communicator chimed softly. Colonel, we're picking up some interesting transmissions between their vessels. Dr. Emily Parker, their xenolinguistics expert, reported. They're using what they think is an unbreakable quantum encryption, but thanks to Dr. Mitchell's breakthrough, we're reading them clear as day. What are they saying? They're concerned, very concerned. Apparently, Earth's sudden silence breaks every pattern they've observed in developing civilizations. Some are arguing for immediate intervention. Others want to maintain their non-interference protocols. A new alert flashed across the command screens. 3 of the alien vessels were breaking formation, heading toward Earth. They're launching what appear to be automated probe platforms, Foster reported. Extremely sophisticated stealth technology, but we can track their quantum signatures easily. Harrison opened a channel to all Earth bases. All stations, implement Protocol Silent Thunder. I repeat, Protocol Silent Thunder is now active. Across the solar system, hidden human facilities activated their phase shields. One by one, humanity's outposts disappeared from normal spacetime, leaving their watchers to find nothing but empty buildings and powered-down equipment. Sir, Foster called out, excitement creeping into her professional tone. You need to see this. The alien vessels, they're arguing with each other. Their quantum signatures are showing signs of agitation. Harrison watched as the alien fleet's formation became erratic. Their scanning patterns grew increasingly desperate, searching for any sign of human activity. But Earth and its colonies remained silent, hidden behind technology their watchers hadn't even theorized possible. General Hayes, Harrison reported through quantum channels. Phase 1 is complete. The visitors are officially spooked. Excellent work, Colonel. Maintain current protocols. Let them stew in their uncertainty for a while longer. As the alien vessels continued their fruitless search, Harrison reflected on humanity's unusual position. For the first time in recorded history, an emerging civilization had managed to slip through their watchers' fingers, not through defeat or destruction, but through technological transcendence. Sir, Foster interrupted his thoughts. We're detecting more quantum signatures entering the system. Much larger fleet this time. Harrison nodded, unsurprised. Looks like we've got the Galactic Council's attention. Good. Time to show them that humanity's silence isn't a sign of weakness. It's a declaration of strength. He watched as more alien ships appeared around Mars, their quantum signatures betraying their confusion and concern. Earth's silence had turned into humanity's greatest weapon, and they hadn't fired a single shot. Lieutenant Kate Reynolds checked her phase shift suit's quantum indicators one final time as the ghost ship Shadowdancer slid through space undetected. Her 6-person infiltration team sat ready in the deployment bay, each member handpicked for humanity's first covered operation beyond the solar system. Phase integrity at 100%. Commander Mark Stevens reported from his pilot station. We're approaching the alien research station. Their quantum signatures suggest minimal activity. Kate nodded, her helmet displaying a real-time feed of the massive structure floating before them. The station's elegant crystalline architecture highlighted just how advanced their watchers were, or thought they were. Remember, team, Kate addressed her squad through quantum comms. We're here to gather intelligence only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. These phase shift suits make us completely invisible to their sensors, but we still don't know all their detection capabilities. The Shadowdancer eased alongside the station, its advanced phase shift technology rendering it as invisible as its crew. Through their quantum sensors, they watched alien crew members going about their duties, completely unaware of humanity's presence. Docking interface engaged, Stevens announced. Ready for phase shift insertion in 3, 2, 1. Kate felt the familiar tingle as her suit synchronized with the ship's phase field. She led her team through the station's hull, their partially shifted state allowing them to pass through solid matter as if it were mist. Quantum signatures are holding steady, reported Lieutenant James Chen, their technical specialist. Station security systems show no sign of detecting our presence. The team moved through the station's corridors like ghosts, passing alien crew members close enough to touch. Kate's suit translated and displayed their conversations in real time, building a comprehensive picture of the station's purpose. Captain, Chen called out softly, "You need to see this. I've found their primary data core." Kate followed him into a vast chamber filled with crystalline data storage structures. Chen interfaced his suit's quantum systems with the alien technology, careful to maintain their invisibility. "This isn't just a research station," he reported, his voice tense with discovery. "It's a monitoring hub for multiple species. They'd been doing this for thousands of years, identifying promising civilizations. And," he paused, "guiding their development." "Guiding how?" Kate asked, though she suspected the answer. "Through orchestrated interventions, wars, technological discoveries, cultural shifts, all carefully managed to produce specific outcomes." Chen pulled up more data. Earth was next on their list. They had plans to orchestrate a global crisis that would unite humanity under their influence. Kate felt her jaw clench. Download everything. Every file, every plan, every species they've manipulated. How long do you need? With our quantum storage systems, 5 minutes. As Chen worked, Kate's team continued securing their exit route. Everything was going smoothly, too smoothly. "Captain," Sergeant Sarah Wilson's voice crackled through the quantum comm. We've got movement. Large group of security personnel heading toward the data core. They're armed. Kate checked her tactical display. Did they detect us? Negative. Looks like a scheduled security patrol, but they'll be here in 2 minutes. Chen. 3 minutes minimum for the download. Kate made her decision. Hold positions. Remember, we're operating in a shifted phase state. They literally cannot see or touch us unless we allow it. The security team entered the data core, their weapons ready but pointed at nothing. Kate and her team stood absolutely still as the aliens moved through them, an experience that tested every nerve they had. Download complete. Chen whispered after what felt like hours. Excellent. Team, fall back to extraction point. Silent protocol all the way out. They retraced their steps through the station, carrying with them the evidence of thousands of years of manipulation. Earth's silence had given them the perfect cover to learn the truth about their would-be overlords. Back aboard the Shadow Dancer, Kate transmitted their findings through secure quantum channels to Earth Command. Mission accomplished. Command. You're not going to believe what we found. Good work, Lieutenant. General Hayes responded. Return to base immediately. It's time to move to the next phase of operations. As the Shadow Dancer disappeared into the darkness of space, Kate looked back at the alien station. Its inhabitants had no idea that their carefully managed galaxy was about to change forever, all because humanity had learned to embrace the silence. Professor David Walker paced in his underground laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as his latest quantum-entangled matter transmission test powered up. After 3 months of Earth's self-imposed silence, his team had achieved something revolutionary. Primary quantum matrix stable, Dr. Rebecca Morgan announced from her control station. Matter stream coherence at 98%. That's 12 points higher than our last attempt. David nodded, his eyes fixed on the test chamber where a small potted plant sat waiting. Begin transmission sequence. Let's see if we can move something living this time. The air around the plant shimmered as quantum fields enveloped it. On the other side of the lab, an identical field formed in the receiving chamber. The plant disappeared from one spot and materialized in the other, its leaves still swaying from the transfer. Bio readings are perfect, Rebecca reported, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. Complete molecular reconstruction with 0 degradation. David, we did it. Before they could celebrate, alarms blared through the facility. Unknown vessels detected entering Earth space. The Quantum AI announced. Multiple signatures match mining fleet configurations. David rushed to the quantum monitoring station. A fleet of massive alien ships had appeared near Saturn's rings, their industrial quantum signatures suggesting resource gathering equipment. They're not supposed to be here, Rebecca said, pulling up the sensor data. This sector was marked as restricted in the files Lieutenant Reynolds' team recovered. David opened a quantum channel to Space Command. General Hayes, are you seeing this? We are, Professor. Looks like some independent operators decided to take advantage of Earth's silence. They probably think we've wiped ourselves out or abandoned the system. Sir, request permission to field test the quantum matter transmission system. We've just achieved stable transport of biological matter. A pause. Approved, Professor. Show them why it's unwise to trespass in human space. David turned to his team. Prep the main quantum transmitter. Time to test this on a larger scale. Within minutes, the alien fleet began its approach towards Saturn's rings, their mining equipment powering up. They never noticed the quantum fields forming around their ships. Quantum lock established, Rebecca reported. Matter stream coherence holding at 97%. Ready for transmission. David took a deep breath. Execute. In an instant, the entire alien fleet vanished from Saturn's orbit. They reappeared seconds later near Pluto, their ships perfectly intact, but now facing the wrong direction. Transmission successful, Rebecca confirmed. Biosigns from all vessels show no adverse effects. They're completely fine, just very confused. Through their quantum sensors, They watched as the alien fleet scrambled to understand what had happened. Their confusion turned to panic as they realized they'd been moved billions of kilometers instantly without any explanation. "Should we send them back?" Rebecca asked, trying to hide her grin. "No need," David replied. "They're already leaving at maximum speed. I don't think they'll be back." General Hayes' voice came through the quantum comm. "Outstanding work, Professor. The Council's observation posts just went crazy trying to figure out what happened. As far as they can tell, those ships just teleported." David studied the quantum readings from the test. "Sir, with some scaling up, we could transport entire space stations, maybe even small moons." "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. How soon can you start installing these systems on our defense platforms?" "Give me 2 weeks. We'll have complete coverage of the solar system." As his team began preparations for the defense grid upgrade, David watched the alien fleet's retreat on the quantum monitors. Earth's silence had given them the time they needed to perfect this technology, and now they had something no other species possessed: true matter transmission. "Professor," Rebecca called out, "we're getting interesting readings from the Council observation posts. They're pulling back to the outer system. I think we scared them." David smiled. "Good. Let them wonder what else we've developed during our silence. The galaxy's about to learn that humanity isn't just another species to be guided or controlled." Through the quantum channels, reports began coming in from other research stations. New breakthroughs, new technologies, all developed under the cover of Earth's silence. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, and that was exactly how humanity wanted it. Admiral Jessica Thompson stood on the bridge of the Nightshade, humanity's first quantum-powered carrier, watching as her fleet of 30 ships materialized in the Proxima Centauri system. The quantum matter transmission had worked flawlessly, placing each vessel in perfect formation. "All ships report successful transit," Commander Robert Chen announced. "Phase shields operating at full capacity. We remain undetected." Jessica nodded, studying the holographic display showing their first extrasolar colony site. "Status of the construction platforms. Ready for deployment. Admiral, settlement pods are prepped and loaded with the first wave of colonists." Through quantum communications, similar reports flowed in from other fleet groups. Operation Silent Spring was proceeding exactly as planned. Humanity's first major expansion beyond Sol, completely hidden from galactic observation. "Admiral," Lieutenant Mark Stevens called out urgently, "we're detecting quantum signatures approaching the system. Multiple vessels, not Council-affiliated." The tactical display lit up with new contacts. 2 alien fleets emerged from hyperspace, weapons already firing at each other. Their quantum signatures identified them as the Solaran and Nexus factions, their civil war now threatening to engulf Proxima Centauri. "Status of our colonists," Jessica demanded. "Still in quantum stasis, Admiral. Settlement pods haven't been deployed yet." Jessica opened a fleet-wide quantum channel. "All ships, implement Protocol Ghostwalker. Prepare for emergency evacuation operations." The human fleet, still cloaked by their phase shields, moved into position around the battling alien armadas. Neither side had any idea they were about to witness something unprecedented. "Quantum fields established," Commander Chen reported, "ready for mass transmission." Jessica watched as the alien vessels continued their battle, their weapons fire illuminating the space around them. "Begin evacuation sequence. Priority on civilian ships." Through their quantum sensors, they identified multiple civilian vessels caught in the crossfire. One by one, these ships vanished, transported safely to the edge of the system through quantum matter transmission. "Civilian evacuation complete," Chen announced. "Both sides are scanning for the missing ships. They're showing signs of confusion and concern." "Good. Now for Phase 2. Target the weapon platforms on both sides." The Nightshade's quantum systems locked onto the primary weapon systems of both fleets. In a cascade of quantum transfers, the weapons simply disappeared, reappearing as inert masses of metal floating near the system's outer boundary. All major weapons successfully removed. Stevens reported, "Both fleets are standing down, their quantum signatures showing rapid power fluctuations. They're panicking, Admiral." Jessica allowed herself a small smile. "Open a quantum channel to both fleet commanders. Audio only. Channel open." "This is a message to both Solaran and Nexus forces," Jessica announced. Her voice carried through quantum channels that neither side could trace or block. "Your civilian ships have been moved to safety. Your weapons have been neutralized. This system is now under protection. You have 30 minutes to retreat before we demonstrate our capabilities further." The alien fleets hung in space, their quantum signatures betraying their confusion and fear. Then, one by one, they began to withdraw, their mighty warships reduced to powerless transports by an unseen force. "All hostile forces retreating," Chen confirmed. "The system is clear." Jessica nodded. "Resume colony deployment and send word to Earth Command. Tell them Operation Silent Spring is proceeding as planned, with an unexpected bonus. We've just established our first protectorate." As the settlement pods began their descent to the chosen colony site, Jessica reflected on how far humanity had come. In less than 6 months, they had gone from a species under observation to one capable of stopping an alien civil war without firing a shot. "Admiral," Stevens called out, "we're detecting quantum transmissions between the retreating fleets. They're spreading the word about what happened here." "Perfect," Jessica replied. "Let them talk. Let them wonder. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity's silence wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning." The Nightshade's quantum sensors detected more Council observation posts appearing at the system's edge, drawn by reports of the incident. They would find no trace of human activity, no sign of the force that had so easily ended a battle between two advanced civilizations. Earth's silent fleet had made its first move, and the galaxy would never be the same. Special Agent Michael Cooper materialized inside the Grand Commerce Station of the Galactic Council, his phase shift suit making him as invisible as a ghost. After 6 months of Earth's silence, humanity's deep reconnaissance program had infiltrated every major alien facility in the local sector. Central control room secured. Agent Lisa Parker reported through quantum comms. "Security systems remain unaware of our presence. You're clear to begin data extraction." Michael moved through the crowded station, passing mere inches from alien beings of countless species. Their conversations, translated in real time by his suit's quantum AI, painted a picture of growing unease throughout the galaxy. "Did you hear about the Proxima incident?" A tall crystalline being asked its companion. An entire battle fleet's weapons simply vanished. The Council is in chaos trying to explain it. Michael smiled beneath his helmet. Admiral Thompson's intervention had caused exactly the kind of confusion Earth Command had hoped for. He approached the station's primary data core, his quantum interface ready to begin the hack. "Hold position," Lisa's voice crackled. "We've got a council meeting starting in the main chamber. High-level officials present." "Hatch me into the feed," Michael ordered, changing course toward the meeting room. The council chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species. Michael found a position near the speaker's platform, his suit recording everything. "The situation has become untenable," the Grand Speaker announced, their bioluminescent form pulsing with concern. "First, the humans go silent. Then their colonies vanish. Now we have reports of impossible technologies being used throughout the sector. Perhaps it's time we admitted our mistake," another council member suggested. "Our observation protocols failed. While we watched them through primitive electromagnetic scanning, they developed quantum technology that surpassed our own." Michael's quantum scanner picked up a surge of data flowing through the station's networks. "Lisa, are you seeing this?" "Affirmative. They're accessing the Uplift archives, getting classified files on Earth." The council chamber's holographic display lit up with images of Earth, recorded over decades of secret observation. Michael felt his blood run cold as he watched their plans unfold, the carefully orchestrated crisis they had planned, the manipulations they would have used to guide humanity's development. Sir, Lisa's voice carried a note of urgency. New files being accessed. There, they're pulling up the failed uplift records. Michael watched as new images appeared. Worlds burned, civilizations collapsed, species extinct. All victims of failed guidance attempts by the Council. Emergency abort, Michael transmitted to his team. Download everything from the archives and prepare for immediate extraction. Earth Command needs to see this now. As his team worked, the Council continued their debate, unaware that representatives of their latest project stood among them, witnessing their true nature. The humans have achieved what no other species has managed, the Grand Speaker concluded. They've broken free of our observation without destroying themselves. The question now is, what are they planning? Michael's quantum communicator pulsed. Data extraction complete. Lisa reported, all teams ready for quantum transmission. Execute transmission, Michael ordered. In an instant, his team vanished from the station, the stolen data secure in their quantum storage systems. Back at Earth Command, Michael delivered his report to General Hayes and the Joint Chiefs. The quantum recordings played out before them, showing the Council's true face. They've done this dozens of times, Michael explained. Find a promising species, engineer a crisis, then sweep in as saviors bearing advanced technology. Those who accept their guidance become client states. Those who resist. He gestured to the images of dead worlds. General Hayes studied the data with a grim expression. And now they're afraid because their plans for Earth were disrupted by our silence. Yes, sir. But more than that, they're afraid because we've demonstrated capabilities they can't understand or counter. Every failed uplift in their records involved species that fought back. We're the first to simply vanish. Good, Hayes nodded. Let them worry. Let them wonder. Phase 7 begins tomorrow. And then they'll learn why humanity's silence was just the calm before the storm. Michael looked at the stolen Council data, evidence of countless civilizations manipulated or destroyed by their would-be benefactors. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humanity had no intention of becoming another failed uplift statistic. General Thomas Wright stood in Earth Command's Quantum Operations Center, watching as the Arcturian battle fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. After 8 months of human silence, the most aggressive species in the Council had finally lost patience. 117 vessels detected, Colonel Sarah Martinez reported. Energy signatures suggest planet-killer class weapons. They're not here for diplomacy. Sir. Thomas nodded, his expression calm despite the threat. Status of our defense grid. Quantum matter transmitters at full power. Phase shields operating at maximum efficiency. The Arcturians can't detect any of our preparations. The massive alien fleet moved forward, their formation spreading out to surround Earth. Their quantum signatures pulsed with weapon energy, preparing for what they assumed would be a swift conquest of a primitive world. Message incoming, Lieutenant John Parker announced. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The Arcturian commander appeared on the main screen, their crystalline exoskeleton gleaming with bioluminescent patterns. People of Earth, your silence ends today. Submit to Arcturian guidance or face extinction. You have one planetary rotation to respond. Thomas opened a quantum channel to all Earth forces. All units prepare to execute Operation Checkmate. Remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to prevent one. The Arcturian fleet launched their first wave of automated probes toward Earth. Each probe carried enough firepower to level a city, but they never reached their targets. As they crossed the quantum defense perimeter, they simply vanished. Probes successfully transmitted to holding facility on Mars, Martins reported. Arcturian fleet showing signs of confusion. They're launching a second wave. Wave after wave of probes disappeared, transported safely away by Earth's quantum technology. The Arcturian fleet's formation began to show signs of disorder as their weapons proved useless. Sir, Parker called out, they're charging their primary planet killer weapons. Energy readings are off the scale. Thomas allowed himself a small smile. Time to show them why silence is golden. Execute Phase 2. Across the solar system, hidden quantum transmitters activated. The Arcturian fleet's weapon systems began to vanish, piece by piece, transmitted to secure facilities throughout human space. The alien vessels hung powerless, their quantum signatures fluctuating with panic. All major weapons successfully removed. Martinez confirmed. The fleet is effectively neutralized. Open a channel to their flagship, Thomas ordered. Let's explain their situation. The Arcturian commander appeared again, their bioluminescence patterns showing clear signs of distress. Before they could speak, Thomas held up his hand. Your weapons have been safely relocated, he stated calmly. Your probes are secured. Your fleet is defenseless, but your crews are unharmed. This is not an act of war, it's a demonstration. Impossible, the Arcturian hissed. No species at your development level could achieve this. That's where you're wrong. Earth's silence wasn't a sign of weakness or submission. It was preparation. While you watched our old transmissions, we transcended every limitation you thought we had. Warning signals blared as the Arcturian fleet attempted to retreat. Their engines flared, but their ships remained stationary, held in place by quantum fields they couldn't detect or understand. We're releasing your fleet now, Thomas continued. Return to your space and deliver this message to the Council. Earth does not require guidance. We have chosen our own path. The quantum fields released their hold. The Arcturian fleet fled in disarray, their mighty armada humbled without a single shot fired. As they disappeared into hyperspace, Thomas opened a channel to Earth Command. Operation Checkmate complete, he reported. The Arcturians have been successfully deterred. Excellent work, General, President Chen responded. How long until they return with reinforcements? They won't, sir. We didn't just defeat their fleet. We shattered their understanding of what's possible. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity's silence wasn't submission to their rules. It was us writing our own. Above Earth, the quantum defense grid hummed quietly, invisible to traditional sensors, but more powerful than any weapon. Humanity had transformed silence into strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Rachel Anderson stepped onto the Grand Council Chamber's speaking platform, her quantum-enhanced diplomatic suit allowing her to appear simultaneously before representatives of over 300 species. After 9 months of silence, humanity was finally ready to speak. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, she began, her words translated perfectly into every language present. Earth thanks you for this audience. We understand our silence has caused concern. The chamber buzzed with murmurs. The Grand Speaker's crystalline form shifted colors rapidly. Concern. You've disrupted the natural order. Ships vanish. Weapons disappear. Battles end without explanation. And now you simply request an audience as if we were equals. Rachel interrupted smoothly. That's precisely why we're here. She gestured, and quantum projectors activated throughout the chamber, displaying scenes from the past 9 months. We discovered your observation posts by accident, she continued. But what we found in your archives was no accident. We saw your plans for Earth, for humanity, the carefully orchestrated crisis you would have engineered, the guidance you would have offered. The chamber erupted in protest, but Rachel's quantum-enhanced voice cut through the chaos. We also saw the failed uplift records, the civilizations destroyed by your interference, the species that chose extinction over submission. Our methods preserve galactic stability, another council member argued. Without proper guidance, emerging civilizations often destroy themselves. Rachel smiled. And that's why we chose silence. Not out of fear or weakness, but because we saw a better way. She activated another display, showing the peaceful resolution at Proxima Centauri. While you watched for radio signals, we mastered quantum communications. While you planned our crisis, We developed technology that made your most advanced weapons obsolete. And while you debated intervention, we proved that true guidance doesn't require force or manipulation. The Grand Speaker's colors darkened. You propose an alternative. We propose freedom, Rachel replied. The freedom for each species to develop at their own pace without interference. Earth will serve as guardian of that right. Holographic displays showed human quantum ships appearing near developing worlds, their phase shields protecting young civilizations from unwanted interference. Already, 30 species have accepted our offer of protection. Rachel continued. Not control, not guidance, but simply the freedom to choose their own path. We call it the Silent Protocol. The chamber fell quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just escaped the Council's influence, they had created an entirely new paradigm. And if we refuse? The Grand Speaker asked. If we choose to maintain our traditional methods? Rachel's expression remained diplomatic, but her voice carried steel. We've already demonstrated our capabilities. The Arcturian fleet learned that lesson well. We don't seek conflict, but we will protect the right of every species to develop without manipulation. She gestured once more, and the quantum projector showed a final image. Earth, surrounded by its invisible defense grid, a silent guardian in the darkness of space. The age of forced guidance is over, Rachel declared. Earth's silence has shown us a better way. We invite you to join us in this new era, not as controllers or guides, but as equals. Partners in ensuring that every new civilization has the same chance we took, the chance to choose their own destiny. The council chamber erupted in discussion, quantum translators working overtime as hundreds of species debated this unprecedented proposal. Rachel stood calmly, knowing that humanity's position was unassailable. Through her quantum comm, she contacted Earth Command. Message delivered, Mr. President. The Silent Protocol is now officially proposed. Well done, Doctor, President Chen replied. And the Council's response. Rachel watched as species after species indicated their support, some eager to escape the Council's manipulation themselves, others impressed by humanity's peaceful demonstration of power. They're accepting it, she reported. Not all of them, not yet, but enough. The galaxy is changing, sir, and humanity's silence helped make it possible. Above the council chamber, Earth's quantum ships stood guard, invisible but ever-present. They were no longer the primitives being watched from afar. They had become the watchers, the protectors, the champions of freedom in a galaxy that had forgotten its value. And it all began with silence. The end. Would you like me to help you compile or format the complete story in any particular way?
Jake Murphy sat in the back row of advanced xenological problem solving, trying not to let his smirk show too obviously. 3 months into his exchange program at the Galactic University of Centauri Prime, and he was already getting tired of the condescending looks from his alien classmates. Sure, humans were the new kids on the cosmic block, but did everyone have to act like they'd just discovered fire last week? Professor Zeldin glided into the lecture hall with that insufferable air of superiority that all Centaurian academics seem to cultivate. Picture a cross between a praying mantis and a college dean who takes himself way too seriously, and you've got Zeldin. His forearms gestured dramatically as he began his usual spiel about the intellectual superiority of elder civilizations. Today, my primitive pupils, Zeldin announced, his translator giving his voice that nasally, know-it-all tone that made Jake want to throw something. We shall examine a puzzle that has challenged the greatest minds across 17 star systems for over 2 millennia. Jake rolled his eyes. Here we go again with the whole you baby species couldn't possibly understand routine. The professor activated a holographic display, revealing an intricate 3-dimensional maze of symbols, geometric patterns, and what looked like mathematical equations having a nervous breakdown. Behold, the Millennium Maze, 1,000 steps of progressive complexity, each building upon the last. No species has ever completed it in under 50 years of dedicated study. A ripple of respectful murmurs went through the class. Jake just leaned back in his chair. 50 years, please. These aliens clearly hadn't met a species that grew up with video games and IKEA furniture assembly. The Centaurians managed 734 steps before admitting defeat, Zeldin continued proudly. The Vorthan Empire reached 812. Even the notoriously persistent Crystalline Collective abandoned their attempt at step 893. Jake raised his hand. What's the prize for finishing it? Zeldin's mandibles clicked in what Jake had learned was the Zentorian equivalent of amused condescension. Prize, young human. The privilege of intellectual advancement is its own reward. Though I suppose your species requires more tangible motivations. The alien students tittered. Jake felt his competitive streak flare up like a rocket engine. Right. So if I solve this thing, what happens? If you solve it. Zeldin's translator practically dripped sarcasm. My dear primitive mammal species with brain capacities 3 times your own have failed. But very well. Should you, against all probability and logic, complete the Millennium Maze, I shall personally recommend you for advancement to the doctoral program. Jake grinned. Deal. Jake strolled into the university's puzzle laboratory the next morning with all the confidence of someone who'd beaten Dark Souls without dying. How hard could it be, really? He'd grown up solving Rubik's Cubes, Sudoku puzzles, and escape rooms. This was just another brain teaser with fancy alien graphics. The first 50 steps were almost insulting in their simplicity. Pattern recognition, basic mathematical sequences, some geometric transformations that reminded him of high school calculus. Jake breezed through them in about 2 hours, occasionally pausing to crack his knuckles and wonder if this was some kind of joke. Wow, you're really going for it, came a cheerful voice behind him. Jake turned to see Pip, a blob-like Glorbonian, who'd been surprisingly friendly since Jake's arrival. Pip looked like someone had crossed a golden retriever with a sentient puddle and had about the same level of boundless enthusiasm. Yeah, well, someone's got to show these uptight academics what human ingenuity looks like, Jake said, gesturing at the holographic display. I'm already at step 53. At this rate, I'll be done by next week. Pip's eye stalks drooped slightly. Oh Jake, you might want to pace yourself. Professor Zeldin has a reputation for designing tests that start easy, and then, Pip made a sound that Jake's translator rendered as become absolutely soul-crushing. Come on Pip, have a little faith in your study buddy here. By hour 4 Jake was starting to understand what Pip meant. Step 78 involved what appeared to be a 4-dimensional chess problem combined with quantum probability calculations. Step 85 required him to solve a riddle written in 3 different extinct languages, simultaneously. And Step 92, well, Step 92 made Jake question whether the universe had a personal vendetta against him. A small crowd of alien students had gathered to watch the human attempt the impossible. Jake could hear them placing bets in various alien currencies, and from the excited chittering, he was pretty sure the odds weren't in his favor. 10 credits says he gives up before step 100, whispered a crystalline student, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a hurricane. I'll take that bet, replied a Vorthan, his tentacles writhing with amusement. I say he breaks down crying at step 75. Jake gritted his teeth and dove back into the puzzle. Fine, let them watch. He'd show them what happens when you underestimate a species that invented both nuclear weapons and reality television. But as he struggled through step 98, watching the holographic symbols rearrange themselves into increasingly complex patterns, Jake began to suspect that maybe, just maybe, he'd bitten off more than he could chew. The patterns were starting to hurt his brain, like trying to solve calculus while someone played death metal directly into his skull. Step 100 loomed ahead of him like a mathematical mountain, and for the first time since accepting Zeldin's challenge, Jake Murphy felt the cold touch of doubt. What followed could only be described as Jake Murphy's descent into academic madness. He'd officially entered what Pip cheerfully called the grind zone, though Jake preferred to think of it as that special circle of hell reserved for people who thought they were smarter than ancient alien civilizations. Steps 100 through 200 took him 3 days. 3 entire days. Jake had covered every available surface in his dorm room with notes, diagrams, and what appeared to be the mathematical equivalent of conspiracy theory string boards. His roommate, a sensible Aquarian named Blub, had requested a transfer after finding Jake at 3 in the morning, muttering about recursive geometric progressions while eating cereal with a fork. Jake, buddy, you might want to take a break, Pip suggested on day 4, watching Jake attack step 215 with the desperate intensity of someone trying to defuse a bomb using only interpretive dance. Can't stop now, Jake mumbled through a mouthful of energy bar. I'm starting to see the pattern. It's all connected, Pip. The mathematical sequences from the first 100 steps are feeding into the geometric transformations, which are modifying the linguistic puzzles, which are. Jake gestured wildly at his wall of notes, looking like a madman explaining why cats are secretly controlling the economy. The alien student audience had grown considerably. Word had spread throughout the university that a human was actually attempting the Millennium Maze, and apparently this was the most entertainment the campus had seen since the great food fight of Stardate 2387. They'd started bringing snacks. Day 6, and the human subject appears to be developing what we call puzzle psychosis, observed Dr. Crix, a Zentaurian psychology professor who'd begun documenting Jake's mental deterioration for academic purposes. Note the wild hair, the constant muttering, and the disturbing relationship he's developed with that holographic display. Is he talking to it? Asked a student. Oh yes, he's named it Gerald. Jake had indeed begun addressing the puzzle display as Gerald, mainly to complain about its unreasonable expectations and poor life choices. Come on Gerald, we've been through this. If the third-dimensional matrix shifts counterclockwise, the probability cascade should resolve to positive integers, not what it is supposed to be. Step 300 was a breakthrough. Jake solved it in only 4 hours, then did a victory dance that involved what could generously be called interpretive movement, and what was more accurately described as a human having some kind of episode. Steps 300 developed his own notation system, created color-coded charts that would make NASA jealous, and started wearing the same lucky shirt for 6 days straight because he'd been wearing it when he cracked step 300. By step 500, not necessarily a good legend, but definitely a memorable one. Alien students were skipping their own classes to watch the humans slow spiral into puzzle-induced madness. Some had started a support group called Beings Concerned About Jake's Mental Health, though their meetings mainly concise bloodshot but determined. Just 400 more steps, and then we'll see who's laughing. The puzzle, for its part, continued to exist with the serene indifference of an inanimate object that had driven countless beings to the brink of insanity. Step 753 was supposed a moment of triumph. He'd been riding high on a wave of mathematical euphoria for the past week, solving increasingly complex puzzles with the focused intensity of someone who'd found their calling in life. Or at least someone who'd found their calling in proving alien professors wrong. The pattern that emerged on his holographic display looked familiar, but not in a good way. It was the kind of familiar that made your stomach drop and your brain start screaming warnings that you'd been ignoring for far too long. Jake stared at the sequence of symbols, his sleep-deprived mind trying to process what he was seeing. No, he muttered, scrolling back through his meticulously organized notes. No, this can't be right. The mathematical sequence from step 753 was identical to step 3. Not similar. Not reminiscent. Absolutely, completely, impossibly identical. Jake's hands moved frantically across his digital notes, cross-referencing patterns and sequences with the desperate speed of someone who just realized they'd been building their house on quicksand. Step 754 matched step 4. 755 matched step 5. The geometric transformation at step 760 was a perfect mirror of the one from step 10. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Jake said, his voice rising to a pitch that made several nearby aliens cover their auditory receptors. Gerald, you magnificent evil, absolutely diabolical piece of computational trickery. The truth hit him like a freight train carrying a cargo of cosmic irony. The Millennium Maze wasn't 1,000 unique steps. It was 250 steps, repeated 4 times in an endless soul-crushing loop. He'd been solving the same basic puzzles over and over again, with just enough variation in presentation to make them seem different. Jake stood up so fast his chair fell over, causing a small stampede among the alien spectators who'd gathered for their daily dose of watching the human lose his mind. He began pacing back and forth, gesturing at his wall of notes like a detective who'd just cracked the case of the century. 250 steps, he announced to his bewildered audience. That's it. That's the whole thing. Every civilization that's attempted this puzzle has been chasing their own tail for decades, solving the same problems again and again, thinking they're making progress towards some mythical step 1000. Pip's eye stalk swiveled nervously. Jake, maybe you should sit down. You're starting to make that face again. What face? The face you made right before you declared war on the campus food dispensers. But Jake was beyond listening to reason. The pieces were falling into place with beautiful, terrible clarity. This wasn't a test of intellectual capability. This was a test of something far more insidious, the ability to recognize when you were being had. Professor Zeldin, Jake bellowed, his voice echoing through the puzzle laboratory. Get your manipulative 4-armed posterior down here right now. Within minutes, Professor Zeldin glided into the lab, his mandibles clicking with what Jake now recognized as barely contained smugness. Ah, Mr. Murphy, I trust you're ready to admit defeat. Most species reach this point of frustration around step 800. Oh, I'm frustrated all right, Jake said, his grin sharp enough to cut glass. Think. Professor Zeldin's mandibly superior way that had been grating. So you finally realized the truth about the Millennium Maze. I must say, you lasted longer than most. Each step in the loop. Jake had mapped every connection, every recursive element, every point where the puzzle fed back into itself. It was, even he had to admit, absolutely gorgeous in its complexity. The answer isn't step 1000, Jake continued, his voice gaining confidence as he saw the expressions of amazement on the alien faces around him. Step 1000 doesn't exist. The answer is understanding that the puzzle is asking the wrong question. It's not can you solve 1000 steps, it's can you recognize when someone is trying to waste your time, and are you clever enough to turn their trick back on them? Professor Zeldin stared at the display, his forearms moving in what Jake had learned was the Zentorian equivalent of nervous fidgeting. This is unprecedented. No species has ever mapped the complete structure before. Most simply recognize the repetition and abandon the exercise. Yeah, well, Jake said, crossing his arms with satisfaction. Most species probably didn't grow up with older siblings who thought putting their homework in an endless loop was the height of comedy. I've seen this trick before, Professor. The only difference is the scale. The alien audience erupted in excited chatter, their various translators creating a symphony of amazement, confusion, and what sounded like several different species placing new bets on outcomes they hadn't previously considered possible. Pip bounced excitedly. So what happens now? Did you solve it? Did you win? Jake looked at Professor Zeldin, who was still staring at the holographic display with the expression of someone whose entire worldview had just been gently but firmly relocated. Well, Professor, I've demonstrated complete understanding of your puzzle's structure, mapped its recursive elements, and proven that I can think outside the parameters you established. Does that count as solving the Millennium Maze? Zeldin's mandibles clicked slowly, thoughtfully. Mr. Murphy, in 3 centuries of academic life, I have never encountered a species that responded to intellectual entrapment by turning it into a teaching tool. Is that a yes? Professor Zeldin's forearms gestured in what Jake had learned to recognize as the Zentorian equivalent of throwing up your hands in defeat. The alien professor stared at Jake's holographic masterpiece for a full 30 seconds before his mandibles began clicking in a pattern Jake had never heard before. Mr. Murphy, Zeldin said slowly, his translator struggling with what sounded like genuine emotion. In the 347 years I have been administering this test, across 42 different species and countless individual attempts, you are the first being to not only recognize the loop, but to treat it as a problem to be solved rather than a frustration to be endured. The crowd of alien students had gone completely silent, which Jake was pretty sure was the galactic equivalent of holding breath. Even Pip had stopped bouncing, his eye stalks focused intently on the exchange between human and professor. Jake couldn't resist the opportunity for a little dramatic flair. So what you're telling me, Professor, is that the answer to your Millennium Maze is that there is no step 1000. The puzzle is designed to test whether a species will recognize futility and quit, or keep grinding away forever in an endless loop of intellectual masturbation. Several aliens made choking sounds that their translators rendered as shocked gasps. Apparently, intellectual masturbation was considered quite vulgar in several galactic languages. Essentially, yes, Zeldin admitted, his voice carrying what Jake could swear was a note of grudging respect. The Millennium Maze was created by the ancient Vorlon civilization as what they called a wisdom filter. It was designed to separate species that could recognize meaningless complexity from those that would waste centuries chasing an impossible goal. Right, Jake said. You've been giving students homework that's specifically designed to waste their time, just to see if they're smart enough to realize it as a new puzzle to be solved. Jake shrugged with the casual confidence of someone who'd just pulled off the academic equivalent of a mic drop. Yeah, well, we're kind of stubborn that way. You tell a human that something can't be done, and we'll either prove you wrong or die trying. Sometimes both. And that, Zeldin said, his forearm spreading in what Jake recognized as a gesture of formal acknowledgement, is precisely why I am not only recommending you for advancement to the dockies as a standard assessment tool. The alien students exploded into chaos. Jake caught fragments of excited chatter